Hello, everyone. I am Lisa Twilley. I'm the director of the Women's Business Center at Maryland Capital Enterprises. We are a nonprofit based here in Salisbury with an office in Baltimore City. We assist entrepreneurs that are getting started in business, or if you're already in business and trying to expand. We do business consulting, marketing consulting, free training workshops such as this, and small business loans. So we serve the entire Eastern Shore of Maryland, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County. So if we can be of any assistance to you, please reach out to us. I'm going to put my contact information in the chat, and I'll also put our websites in the chat. But you can also, if you'd like to be added to our newsletter list, an email list to know about different events and trainings we have going on, please send me a little note with your email. Well, actually, I have your email if you're registered, so we can add you. Just let me know you wanted to be added because we have to have your permission. But today we have Rosalind Davis here with RADA Business Solutions, and she is going to talk about our MBE, DBE, SBE certification. So thank you so much, Rosalind.
You're very welcome, Lisa. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on Maryland's Department of Transportation Business Certifications. So I'm Rosalind Davis. I am the president and CEO of RADA Business Solutions. We are a consulting firm that specializes in business transformation to include business process improvement, strategic planning, and change management. We also specialize in workforce developments, where we'll do executive coaching, leadership development, 360 feedbacks, and finally, we do business administration support, where we'll do financial operations, event logistics, and meeting facilitation. So we are a woman, veteran, and minority-owned small business located here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Before I get started into this presentation, I always want to thank Maryland Capital Enterprise, the Women Business Center, Lisa Twilley, for providing this training platform so that we can get the word out and get more Maryland businesses certified. Without this introduction to Lisa, it wouldn't have been possible without Kamalia Blunt, who used to work for Lord and Tucker Management Consultants, for making this connection between RADA Business Solutions and Lisa Twilley. And I'm so glad we continue to have this partnership to provide this training to you. I also want to thank Rochelle Hemingway, who is the president of Slay to Success, for allowing me to use some of her application screenshots to develop today's presentation. Now, Slay to Success is a leadership and transformation consulting business that provides professional speaking services, mentorship sessions, and training and development for organizations looking to advance the progression of women. And so finally, my disclaimer for today is the screenshots that are used in this presentation are actual screen captures from MDOT certification online application. But the views and opinion during this presentations are the views are my own, and they are no way the views and opinions of the Maryland Capital Enterprise or any other government or entity. So I want to recommend that if you have not already done so, in the top right of your Zoom screen, you might want to switch to the standard view to enhance your visibility of the application process. Now, with that, I don't want to suck up any bandwidth on my network, so I'm going to go off camera and let you focus on what's on the screen, which are the slides. So here is the agenda. We're going to talk about the Maryland Department of Transportation MBE, SBE, and DBE, ACDBE certification applications. This is part one of a two-part series of the application process. I want to point out and stress to everyone that there is no cost to apply for MDOT certification, zero cost. The process is a four-step process. First is your application submission. Second is the investigation to include on-site or virtual visit. They want to make sure that you are a valid entity, a valid business, that there's actually an office space. They can do that virtually, by you taking pictures and then also getting onto a Zoom meeting and you sharing your camera, or they may even visit your office at an offsite where they will come out and physically view your location. And then the third step is the evaluation to see if you meet the eligibility requirements. And then the final thing is the determination. You'll get a decision letter whether you have been approved or denied for certification. This whole process used to take about 3 to 4 months, but I'm now hearing it may take about 6 months. So you just have to be patient for them to render a decision. So starting the process. So Maryland Department of Transportation is the state's official certification agency for companies that are seeking to be a minority business enterprise, a disadvantaged business enterprise, an airport concessions disadvantaged business enterprise, or small business certification, hereinafter referred to as MBE, DBE, ACDBE, and SBE certifications. That's a mouthful. So the Office of Minority Business Enterprise, they highly recommend that when you apply, that you apply for all of these certifications at the same time if you're eligible, because there's one application, excuse me, there's one application that supports all 4 of these certifications. So rather than you submit an application for each one, they have developed a uniform certification application. So for today's training, I'm going to focus on part 1, which is on creating an account and applying for a new certification. So here on this screen, you will see the screen when you apply for your application that your firm is not currently certified with MDOT. If you're a new application, you'll see this, and so you will want to create an account. Now, it'll ask for your business tax ID number. Now, once you enter your tax ID, the system will check to see if your company is already listed in the database. But because you're brand new and this is a new application, there will be a match not found. So you will continue to create an account. Now, where do you get your business tax ID from? If you don't already have it, you will go to irs.gov. This is also sometimes referred to as your employee ID number, EIN. So this is the business tax ID for your business. Now, at a minimum, you will need to complete all the fields with asterisks as highlighted on this slide here. Your business name, the company type, your main company email, phone numbers, and your address. You will continue to complete all the fields that have an asterisk. Again, your name, email, phone number, and then you'll create a password for your application because you will be able to save your application as you go through the process and come back to it to finish it later. Now, once you create your account, you'll see this welcome screen here. Now, now the certification program highlights. Kind of want to review the application of the different certification programs. So again, you have your DBE, you have your SBE, you have your MBE, and each one of those have different certification eligibility rules that apply to them. And in the next few slides, I'm going to highlight some of the standards that are applicable to each certification. So moving into determining your eligibility for each of the certifications. So for MBE, your Minority Business Enterprise certification, your ownership, you have to be 51% owner of your company. Your minority statuses, you have to be one of the protected classes that are listed on this slide. This is applicable to MBE certification only. On the slide, it says the dollar threshold is 1.9. This has been increased at the beginning of this year. So now the dollar threshold is 2 million. Now, later in this application process, you will need to upload a resume. In the resume, I'm going to highlight some of this where it talks about the management and policies of the firm to make day-to-day decisions. You want to ensure before you upload your resume that it has this language. It needs to say the management and policies of the firm and who makes the day-to-day decisions. So that needs to be the 51% owner. You need to make sure your resume has that language. Your personal net worth for a DBE and ACV is lower than the MBE dollar threshold. So for DBE, which is the disadvantage, and then the AC, which is the airport concession, it's 1.32 million. So that is no change at the beginning of the year. So just kind of keep that in mind that the dollar threshold for your personal net worth are different for MBE versus DBE. Again, your personal net worth for DB and ACBE are the same, the 1.3, and you need to be 51% owner. Now I'm going to get into some of the required information and documents, and this is very important that you make sure that you have these documents available, ready to upload into the portal, the online portal for Maryland Department of Transportation. So based on your company structure, so whether it's a sole proprietorship, it's an LLC, it's a partnership or a corporation, you want to make sure that you download and review the applicable checklists. They are available on MDOT's portal for you to download. Now, listed here are common documentation that you will need regardless of your certification. So, affidavit of certification. This is a document that you will need to print and you will need to have notarized. Once it's notarized, you will upload that into the system. Your state business registration documents. So this is your company in good standing. This is your articles of organization. These are the documents that you will need for state business registration documents that you'll get from the state. And resumes, you're 51% owner, but also if you have any corporate members as well, all the resumes of your executive team needs to be uploaded if that applies. At a minimum, you as the owner, you would need to upload your resume. You'll also need to have proof of citizenship. So that could be in the form of a passport, not expired, or your driver's license that's not expired as well. Now, the personal net worth statement. This is a form that you can download from inside the portal. Once you complete that document, you will need to have it notarized. I just did my annuals recertification, and I will tell you the form is a 5-page document. However, on page 3, it's missing a part about the notoriety. So you would have to create a separate Word document or so if you go to a credit union or whoever does the notary, because it's kind of cut off on their form. And I'm going to send that to Lisa so that she can share that with you. And all I did was just create a Word document so that the notary person can actually sign and put their stamp on it. So Lisa, if you could remind me to send that to you, because you will need to have that to upload into the portal. And then you're also going to need 3 to 5 years of your personal federal tax returns. Now, if you just started business this year, then you don't have 3 years. And I'm going to show you how to get around that, because you do need to answer the question so that they don't say, where are your 3 to 5 years, and miss the part where you said you've only been in business for 1 year. You also need 5 years of business federal tax returns. Again, if you've only been in business for 2 years, I'm going to show you what you need to do to account for those other 3 years that you are not in business. You're going to need 3 years of year-end financial statements. Now, these don't have to be from a certified accountant. These can actually be Excel spreadsheets that you create, but you will need some financial statements, and they are listed in the application which ones they need. You will also need a bank signature authorization form, something saying that you have a business bank account at this particular banking institution and that you are the authority to sign for checks and credit cards for the company. And then your vehicle title, registration, and insurance information if you use it for business. So if you have a POV that you also use for business, you will need to include the title or registration in your application along with proof of insurance. And then finally, the last document is licenses and contracts. For instance, if you are a licensed financial provider or a licensed childcare provider, those are the types of license that they're asking for, those industry specific. Construction is another example. They're not asking for license or license for other things, but more of trade licenses. And then the contracts, there will be a part where they're asking for your last 3 contracts. And I'll get into more detail of that. The main thing I want to point out on this slide here is that there are 2 documents that require notary. Make sure you get the notary before you upload those documents. So now getting into the uniform certification application. So if you want, you can download or print the uniform certificate application for reference as you go through the online process. So this screen here, it asks you about your firm's location. For this training session, we're going to assume that you are seeking certification for the first time. So you want to click your firm is not currently certified by MDOT. Your firm is located in Maryland and you are seeking certification. So then you would click submit a uniform application. Now, if your company is not located in Maryland, you will need to register your business in Maryland and then return to complete your online certification application. And as of this, excuse me, also as of this year as well, they're trying to streamline the documentation requirements for interstate DBE and airport concession certification process. So if you are a firm that is outside of the Maryland area, you will need to submit fewer documents. So there's definitely streamlining for your interstate certification, which now includes a cover letter, an electronic image of the firm's original DBE certification. So you still have to be certified, but now you're going to include a copy of that certification and then a declaration of eligibility. So they are trying to stream that for interstate certification. Now, listed on this screen here is again that 4-step process that I mentioned at the beginning. Your business name is going to be pre-populated from a previous screen. And autofill will pre-populate certain information such as your email address and your company type as you proceed through the application. So no need to re-enter that information. Now, on this screen here, by answering these questions, it's going to help you determine if you should apply for certification. So you would go through and say, do your firm at least 51% owned by a socially and economically disadvantaged business owner? And you would go down the line and answer those questions. I want to caution you that if you are a not-for-profit business, do not proceed because your business is not eligible for certification. This certification is for for-profit businesses only. Now, the next few slides are an overall application instructions. Now, something I want to point out on the screen, it says, if you're unable to provide documents because it's not applicable, I recommend that you use a Word or a PDF document and state so. Basically, just open up a blank Word document, type your application number, type your name, the name of your company, and just type the name of the document that it's asking for and put it's not applicable. Uh, for example, if you've only been in business for 2 years and they're asking for 3 years of tax returns, for that third year, you would just put not applicable because you've only been in business for 2 years. So that is the way in which you will get around the system, because if you leave it blank, you're not going to be able to submit your application, or your application will be delayed or kicked back. So you want to make sure that you address each area, even if it does not apply. And the way that you do that is create a separate Word document and put that information on there, and then upload it so that the system recognizes that you have attached the document for that particular response. So one thing I want to point out is when you get to the screen, you will see that there's a timeline. So you want to make sure that you download that checklist, have all those documents in advance ready to upload, because there is a timeline of about 90 days where if you don't submit all the information that when you started your application, you will need to start over. So that's important that you make note of this date when you need to have your application submitted. Now, here's a list of the mandatory documents. Now, due to time constraints in part 1, I'm not going to go through this list of documents in details because these will all be covered in part 2. Now, here's a list of all the, if applicable, documents. Again, these will all be covered in part 2, and part 2 is taking place on June 25th at noon. This slide is a review of your application. So it's going to show your application number at the top of the screen. Now, don't forget, make sure that you refer to your application number for any external correspondence that you upload to the systems. For instance, those Word documents where you submit that something does not apply to you. And also just want to remind you again that your application by date listed on the screen, it will be deleted if you don't request an extension. So you want to make sure that you pay close attention to that date so that your application does not get deleted automatically from the system. Now, here are some additional instructions before you begin your application. I want to refer you over here to the right side of the screen. So the red arrow, this is mandatory. So if you see a red box, that means that particular question or that particular document is mandatory. If you see yellow, it's optional. So if it applies to your business structure, then answer it. If it doesn't, it's optional. Green means that you have completed that particular section. So at the end of your application, what you want to see is all greens. And until you have all greens, you will not be able to submit your application. And again, the not applicable, in areas that are not applicable, you mark those NA, include a brief statement about why it's not applicable. And I highly recommend that you save often. Save your draft, especially if you don't complete it in one session, because you don't want to have a lot of information that you've entered, answered questions, uploaded documents, only for the system to crash and you've lost all your work. So here's at the start of the application. So as you can see, this is all red. And don't be alarmed. This is just saying that you have not completed these particular sections. So one good thing about MDOT certification is this is different from the System for Award Management, SAM.gov on the federal side. You can complete this application in any order that you like. So if you have documents for Section 1, but then Section 4, go ahead and do those, whichever order you want. So now that's a good thing about the system where you don't have to follow it sequentially. But the system is not going to allow you to submit your application again if this is red. So you want to make sure all this turns green. Now, certification information. We're going to talk about section 1 of the application. It's basic contact information. So it's going to ask you a series of questions. And as you can see here, this particular first question, it's red. It's telling you it's required. It is mandatory. You'll also see some green. You'll see some yellow information on this screen. So those are the required versus optional questions. So now some of this information, again, is going to be pre-populated from previous sessions in your application. Now with section 1, once you complete that basic information, you'll see here that that check mark is now green. Now you can always come back to this screen here by saving and returning to the start of your application. This sort of gives you a visual representation of those sections that you have completed and the sections that you still yet to complete. Section 1 continues with certification information. So this is about prior other certification applications. This is where you will make a selection on the type of certification that you are applying for. Again, you have to answer those mandatory questions that are here in red. And it wants you to indicate what type of application you are applying for. So if it's the DBE, check that box, but it's also ACB, DBE, check that one as well. And then just go down the line and talk about which applications, certifications you want to apply for and answer all the mandatory questions. Some additional mandatory questions. Section 2, general information. This is about your business profile. So in this particular first block, you want to enter a brief description of what your company offers. You don't have to get very technical. You could just say, I offer, for instance, Rota Business Solutions. We do professional services. We do program project management, something along those lines to keep it simple. But you do need to include a brief description. Now, where it says your applicable North American industry classification codes, commonly referred to as NAICS codes, you want to do a search for your applicable NAICS. If you don't know your NAICS code for your industry, you can go to census.gov and click on NAICS codes, and you can put in keywords that will help you identify what NAICS code apply to your business. Now, if you have more than one, use the additional option to select more codes. The key here is to make sure that you identify those industry classification codes that apply to your business. But I want to caution you that you want to make sure the NAICS codes that you select are identified in your resume, because they will check to say, if you said you can do construction, but we don't see construction in your resume, that's going to be a red flag, and that's going to delay your application. Be prepared, because they may ask you to submit a separate letter outlining where, when, and the duration of the work that you perform under each NAICS code. For instance, when I did my initial application, if I put administrative support, they wanted to know, where did I provide business administration, when, what was the duration. So again, they want to check to make sure that what you say you can do, your resume backs it up, but also, where did you get this experience from? Business profile continues. This information here is kind of self-explanatory. Now, use the same date for established and owned if that is applicable. Now, once again, if you are not for profit, do not proceed because your company is not eligible for certification. Where it says number of employees, you want to make sure that you include yourself as one of the types of employees. As I've highlighted on this slide, you also need to upload a document with the list of employees per category, title, and dates of employment. If you're a company of one, then it's just one. And so you would just have the document with just your name. You will need to attach the last 5 years of your federal tax returns. If you just started and you do not have tax returns to submit, again, do a separate Word document, include your application number, your name of your business, and why you do not have 5 years. You have to do that for each year that's not applied. You can't do that for just submit one letter and think that's going to cover each one of those. You have to do it separately. So for instance, if 2010 does not apply, make sure your Word document says 2010. You'll have to do another one for 2011 or whatever the dates and years may be, but you have to do them separately. Now, moving on to section 2, general information. So this is dealing with the relationships and your dealings with other businesses. So each one of these questions is mandatory again. Answer as appropriate and then click save and return to the summary to advance to the next session. Section 2 continues. Again, all these questions are mandatory, so answer those and save so that you can move to the next section. So section 3, majority. This talks about your owner information. So what you would do is click right here where I have circled on the screen in red, add the owner. You would add yourself if you are the owner. And this is how you add additional people if that applies. But at a minimum, you will need to add the owner. Complete all the areas in red. Now, again, some information has been pre-populated from previous sections. Now, if you don't own stock, then click not applicable and use your start date as the date acquired, but do not leave it blank because it will show that stock does not apply, but your start date that you acquired your business was the date that you started it, but you have to enter a date. Now enter 0 or as applicable as far as initial investment to start your business. So this is not just you bootstrapping your business to help buy supplies or things like that. This is like capital investments where you may have bought a truck or bought other equipment or something to start your business. This is what they're asking for here. Now you will need to submit proof of how you acquired your business. So if you did buy that capital investment, that vehicle or other type of equipment, you'll need to show proof of receipt that you've bought those. Now, if you started the business yourself, you want to include your state business registration documentation to show that you started this business in Maryland and that you are in good standing. And then on the screen, you want to make sure you answer those remaining mandatory questions. The first 2 questions on the screen are green because you've already answered and saved them. The important question is your personal net worth. Now, here's the part where I want to caution you. If you have not completed your personal net worth statement, then just put a number here to complete this section, but you're going to have to remember to come back and add the correct number after you complete your statement. Those 2 numbers need to match. What is your personal net worth on the form that's notarized? You need to come back and enter this number right here. Now moving on to section 4, control of your officers and board of directors. Now you can enter yourself as the officer and the board of directors. Again, all the questions on this screen are mandatory. Section 4, control and the management of your personnel. You can list yourself as the point of contact. You can list yourself as the point of contact for each one of these sections. So don't feel as though you have to have separate names. You can be the point of contact for each one of these that they're asking for. Section 4, control and inventory. So for equipment and vehicle inventory, they're not asking for your POVs as the vehicles. Only list company vehicles such as maybe a tow truck that has your company name on it. That's the type of vehicle that they're asking for, and then equipment as well. And then you want to enter the purchase office space or lease value. So if you're just renting at perhaps a virtual space or something, they're not asking for that. If you have a long-term lease office space, like in a commercial building or something, that's what they're asking for. And then if you have storage space, for example, maybe you have a storage warehouse for your company, you need to enter that information. Section 4, control financial information. So the first question, so for instance, if you use QuickBooks Pro to manage your own payroll, then enter no. But if you use a company such as ADP or Paychex or some other payroll company to manage your payroll, then the answer is yes. But if you manage your payroll yourself through ADP, then the answer is no. You want to list the individual who can sign checks for your company, again, having that bank authorization form or letter, because not only you're answering the question here, but you also need to upload the document to support the answer that you put here. And then bonding, this typically applies to construction companies. So if you're not a construction company, this does not apply to you. Now, you will want to select yes on sources of loans. Make sure it matches the loans that you list on your personal net worth statement. But if you don't have any loans, then that would be a no. But just make sure that the answer that you provide here matches your personal net worth statement. Section 4, control licenses and contracts. So the first question here asks you about your licenses. Again, this is talking about trades, engineers, plumbers, electricians, etc. But you also need to be prepared to make sure that you can upload your license or your permit certificate and that they have not expired. In addition to listing the contracts, you'll also need to upload a copy of the contract. So as you can see throughout the system, it'll ask you a question in one section, but then you'll have to upload the documents to support and verify that information. And then any additional information session, use this to identify if you were a prime or a sub on any other pertinent information. I'd like to say, again, this is the opinion of my own, that less is better. If something does not apply, then skip that section, because the more information that you provide is more scrutiny for the reviewer or the analyst on the back end. Now, here is a status page. This is kind of where you can kind of keep track of the greens and the reds, and then let you know what you've completed and what sections you still need to complete. Now, I'm going to go through quickly the list of mandatory documents, but I'm not going to go into detail because we're going to do that in part 2 on June 25th. So here's the list of all the documents. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a button called Lock In. So what you need to do is, if a document doesn't apply, you just click the button that says not applicable, and then it will show that you've already identified and answered that question, and it will remove that document from your visibility so that you don't have to upload the document. And here is that lock-in checkbox. So some key takeaways and conclusion. First, I highly recommend that if you haven't done so already, before you start your application, you want to kind of create a folder that's maybe on your desktop where you can upload all those documents based on the checklist, so that you have them readily available to upload. Because again, the clock is ticking. You only have about 90 days to complete your application before it's automatically deleted. To apply for the certification, it is absolutely free. There are companies and the businesses out there that will charge you to do what you can do for yourself, which is basically gather your documents. They will give them back to you for you to upload. So again, this is a free application. You want to consider completing the uniform certification application so that you can apply for multiple certifications at one time. It's a 4-step process. Right now, the process is taking probably 6 months, so you have to be patient. You can always go back in and check the status of your application at any time. I suggest don't check until at least 60 days have passed. Make sure that you pay attention to that required information and documents, because those are the mandatory things that you must answer and or upload. And your personal net worth. If you remember, if you go back to section 4 in the majority owner section of the application, you want to make sure that that dollar figure that you put there matches the dollar figure on your personal net worth form that you get notarized. Part 2 is not happening in November. Part 2 is happening on June 25th. And with that, I want to say thank you for joining me today for part 1 of the Maryland Department of Transportation Certification application process. I want to open up right now to see if you have any questions. And also you can connect with me on LinkedIn and find out be one of the first to know when that training for June 5th is going to take place. And you can follow me on LinkedIn. Okay, Lisa.
Does anybody have any questions? Now's the time to ask the expert. You can just unmute yourselves. I don't see anything in the chat. Is everybody overwhelmed?
Hey, one thing I wanted share with everyone, I talked with Lisa at the beginning of this training workshop, and a couple of my screens are outdated because they were done before the personal net worth was updated on January 1st. So I offered to Lisa to provide a one-on-one session with one of her clients to go through their application with them one-on-one. And this will allow me to have updated screenshots. And so I think Lisa has selected one of her clients, and they may be on this workshop today.
Yes, Precious.
Hello there.
Hey. So did you hear what Rosalind said? I selected you since you're already a client of the Women's Business Center. If you would like one-on-one session, she'll guide you through step by step so that you can get one-on-one attention. So it's an awesome offer. Thank
Oh,
you,
this is
Rosalind.
fabulous. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our session.
You're very welcome. Lisa will provide me your contact information, and we can schedule a session that accommodates both of our schedule at a future date.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Iva and Ira, do you guys have any questions?
I do actually have one question. Thanks for the presentation, Ms. Davis. It was very informative. My question's on the personal net worth. Is there some formula on how that's arrived at, or what goes into, $2 million net worth or less?
Yes.
How is that calculated?
So on the form, give me 1 second. Luckily you asked, because I'm actually going through my annual certification now. So on the form, it asks for your assets. So it's going to ask you for your retirement accounts. It's going to ask you for any assets held in trust, any loans to shareholders, real estate, excluding your primary residence. So that's in the asset column. In your liabilities, it's going to ask you for any loans on life insurance policies, any mortgages on real estate that's outside of your primary residence, any credit card payments, any other type of liabilities that you may have, and then unpaid taxes. So once you enter those numbers into those 2 columns, you will calculate your personal net worth. And there is a box that says net worth, and that number there is the same one that needs to match on section 4.
Okay, good. Thank you.
But here's one thing I want to make sure. The form is not set up to automatically calculate the numbers for you. So you will need to pull out a calculator and calculate the numbers.
So my 10 fingers and 10 toes may not do it, huh?
No, it probably not going to do it.
Okay, thank you. I understand.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Well, please be sure to join us for part 2 on June 25th, same time, 12 to 1. And be sure that you go in and register if you haven't done that yet at our website, marylandcapital.org. I did put my contact information in the chat. So if you need any of our services, please reach out. We also do have another class tonight from 6 to 7. It's called Goal Setting for Success. And that's with Shelly Eldridge. So we're looking forward to that. She's from the Baltimore area as well. And then tomorrow evening, we have Streamlining for Your Daycare Part 2. So lots of classes going on. We usually don't do as much in the summer because attendance can kind of get low with lots of graduations, vacations, things like that. But we do have some training going on, and when we pick more up in the fall. So stay tuned. And I definitely added you to the